product, offer better prices, offer better service, or sell themselves to a company who will do all that, or they go out of business. They only got those two choices. There is no other choice. If they don't have money coming in, they go out of business. So if companies are having a difficult time finding good, solid employees so they can make their customers happy, so they can make money and stay in business, if nobody wants to work for them, then one of two things are going to happen. They're going to have to change their culture, their management style, or they're going to go out of business. This is, I hear people could look, unless you don't have a choice, like I don't have a choice not to have Comcast at the moment. I mean, if I want to have internet access and stuff like that, well, in my area where I live, the only choice I have at the moment is Comcast. But I have choice. Let's say, if I know people say, well, Rod, you can get those hot spots from Verizon and AT&T and Sprint, and no, it's too slow. It won't work for what I do. I thought about it, but it won't work for what I do. However, for other things, it's pretty simple. I remember when I had a particular cell phone company, U.S. Cellular. I've talked about this before. They also at the time didn't seem that they wanted me care if I was a customer of theirs or not. I guess they felt that I wasn't going to leave. Well, it got to a point where I was just fed up with their poor service, their poor pricing, and so I went to Sprint. Now, lo and behold, about 3 months after I left U.S. Cellular, I started getting emails. Well, what did we do wrong? Come back to U.S. Cellular. We'll do this for you. No, it's too late. I had a choice. And for like 6 or 7 years, Sprint was the bomb for me. They took care of me. They acted like they wanted me as their customer. I raved about Sprint. And I loathed, and to this day, I still loathe U.S. Cellular. And whenever I think about looking at different cellular phone plans and services, U.S. Cellular does not come up on my list. Why? Because they had the chance to earn my business before, and they acted like they didn't want it. There are companies that I will, that I won't work for ever again. Obviously, if they're in business, I'm not going to work for them. If they're not in business, well, it doesn't matter if I want to or not. Not going to work for them if they're not in business. But look, so you have the same choice. Now, I'm sure, people don't hear this very often. This is the United States of America still, where you have a choice. You can make your dreams come true yourself. Government isn't going to do it for you. You have to do it. And, I saw, I think it was yesterday on LinkedIn, one of these so-called thought leaders. Now, I don't know who they say, who determines that some of these people are thought leaders, but one of these thought leaders, they had a blog or blurb or article, what have you. And it talked about some of the myths. What was it? Some of the myths for I think either getting a job or starting a business or something. And one of the myths that he says was a myth was can't find a job, start a business. And he put that down as a myth. That doesn't work. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Yes, it works. There are successful companies today, even large corporations, that were started because they got laid off from a job, and they'd had enough of it, or they couldn't find a job. You just go out there and you start your own, especially in today's economy where you don't need a whole hell of a lot of startup capital for a whole host of kinds of businesses. And I'm thinking this is the kind of thought capital that's being bandied about, that's being thrown around. No wonder we're in such doldrums. We got people out there that are being touted as thought leaders who are telling people, no, you can't make it. Don't even bother. That's a bad idea to do that. You know what's sad? Is because they're in positions of success, people listen to them. This thought leader said I can't do that. Well, what do you mean? Go ahead and start your own business. No, I can't start my own business now. Why not? Because that thought leader who's very successful in his industry says I can't do it. He says it's a myth to do it. People listen. But you can't let somebody else take your dream away. Whatever your dream, and that includes government, that includes Barack Hussein Obama. You can't let these people take your dream away. Plain and simple. Don't let them do it. A lot of Americans do. They accept mediocrity. They accept poor service. They accept poor bosses. They accept poor wages, poor pay. We accept bad government. We accept bad government employees. We accept bad senators and bad congressmen and bad presidents and bad governors. We accept. We've accepted so much that we don't know what it is to be exceptional. We've accepted so much mediocrity, so much failure, so much dismalness that we do not know what exceptionalism is. We're all guilty of accepting what less than what we should expect. Well, I expect this level of service, and then we don't. Let's put it on a level of 1 to 5. I expect a level of service at level 5. And we don't get it. We get a 3. And we might complain. We might bitch a little bit. And we'll get a 3.5 or a 4 just to placate us. And we'll accept it. Instead of saying, no, I'm paying for it. I expect a 5. Not a 3. Not a 3.5, not a 4, not a 4.5, but a 5. But we don't. We accept the 3.5 or the 4. We'll even accept the 4.5 and think, oh, well, I got a deal. No, you didn't get a deal. You got ripped off because you originally expected a 5 and you got a 4.5, but you still paid for the 5 price. Goes for government and taxes too. We're paying all this money in the form of taxes, various levels of government, taxes, fees, licenses, what have you. All this money going to the government, and we expect the government to do its absolute best and uphold their fiduciary duty and give us the biggest bang for our tax dollar. We expect it. We all expect it. But then we accept far less. I can't figure it out. Even when, it's probably getting to the point where when we get somebody exceptional, we don't believe it, which is probably why we keep electing people like Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, even John Bonnier. Or Boehner. How do you pronounce it? Is it Bonnier or Boehner? I don't. I think it's Boehner because somebody took me to you keep calling him Boner. No, I don't call him Boner. Maybe I call him Bonehead. No, I don't call him Boner. I say Bonner, but I think it's his name's Boehner. But it's B-O-E, right? So that's not really an A. Is that how you pronounce his? I did. He's not my congressman. He's from Ohio. I don't need to know how to pronounce his name. Hell, besides, I've got my own problems here in New Hampshire with my two new ultra-liberal representatives that I look, I got to be careful now because my representative is Annie Kussler. I cannot mispronounce that name, and I'm sure most of you know why. Her name is Custer. Or Kussler. Is it Kussler or Custer? One of the two. And yeah, she's a woman. And she got a nasty, filthy mouth, too, on her. So, I have to be, for the next 2 years, I have to be careful about how I pronounce her name, and I'm sure most of you probably know why. So, we don't, she's from New Hampshire, yes. I know, look, it's not my fault. I tried to warn people, but, I guess we we expected so much, but we're willing to accept so little. Because, think about it. People say, well, who are we going to vote for? The lesser of two evils. And instead of standing up and saying, why the hell should we have to decide between the lesser of two evils? Why don't we throw an angel in there? Why don't we expect the best so we can choose between the best and the best? At least give us a choice between the best and the worst. Not a choice between the worst and the worst. And trying to decide who's least worst. I mean, that's a terrible way to run a family, run a business, run a government. When you have to choose between who's least worst? I mean, I know that probably doesn't, I know some English professor is probably having a hairy conniption because of the way I just said that, but think about it. We, I don't know, for the past 20 years, since Bill Clinton, we have been choosing what? Our choice has been to choose who's least worse, the lesser of two evils, the smallest devil. Look, that's how Bill Clinton won re-election. I mean, he won election because, America threw a hissy fit at George H.W. Bush. You promised no taxes. No new taxes, and you lied about raising taxes, and you raised taxes, so we're going to throw you out. And America had and we didn't learn that lesson from that lesson, because that's how we got Obama. But so then, Clinton got in office, and then it was between Clinton and Dole, and people had to decide, well, who's the least worst of the two? And Dole couldn't convince them that he was the least worst. People thought Clinton was the least worst, so they reelected Clinton. Hell, this is a guy who also had tax-raising policies and even made them retroactive. But people looked at Bob Dole as being worse than Bill Clinton. Seriously. And then there was a little bit of promise with George W. Bush. But again, it was pretty much, there might have been somebody better than George W. Bush out there. But it was pretty clear that people were trying to choose who was going to be the least worst between Gore and Bush. And Bush was able to convince people, well, I'd be less worse than Gore. Thankfully, people got that one right. And then we had the choice between Kerry and Bush and W. And again, people got that one right. But then as Americans, we threw another hissy fit. Because we were convinced that we were mad at Bush, and Bush did this and Bush did that. Bush gave us this, and Bush, the war and the Patriot Act and a bad economy was going down the tubes. It was all Bush's fault. So we're going to blame somebody who's not Bush and we're going to give it to Obama. Well, also because Obama's black. So,